All right, so we're going to go over the detention module. So we're going to talk about what it is. Detention module is something we built within Insight that's going to allow you to have the ability to track detention, insight into how long a trailer has been at a certain location. And trailers at that location are either in free time or have entered the detention period. You can set up detention profiles for multiple locations with numerous different business rules, and I'll show you how to set up a detention profile. We'll show you how you can receive alerts when trailers are approaching the end of their free time, and really show you some reporting functionality that shows over a given period of time which trailers have been in detention at which locations. So we're going to jump right now into Insight, and to access the detention module, you click on Manage Settings and come to Detention. Today, everyone's detention link is interested in using the detention module at this point in time. Please contact our customer care, and they will enable the detention feature for you. You can click on Detention. Brings you to this screen here. So the first tab is our Detention Profile tab. So I have already created a couple of different detention profiles. So we're going to go ahead and click on this one. So this is the Skybits Work Centers. Two different landmarks that are associated with this detention profile. If we hit Edit on the profile, it'll populate how we have this profile set up. So today, the name of it is populated here. The warning threshold is how many hours into free time do you want to get a warning that someone is getting close to entering detention. Free time hours is the total number of hours before detention kicks in. So if you're giving 8 hours of free time, you put 8 here, and then 6 hours into that 8 hours of free time, you get an email warning sent to you saying, the details of the trailer, the details of the landmark, and the detention profile, and letting you know that asset is getting close to going into detention. You put a bill code in. You can select how you want the billing to be represented in what increment. You want to have a warning threshold email, you can add here, so I'll put mine in. And go ahead and add that to the profile. And here is where you have your business rules. So for the free time, you can actually exclude Saturdays and Sundays. If you don't want that to count towards the free time, checking these boxes will make the timer basically pause during Saturdays and Sundays. So if you had 48 hours of detention 48 hours of free time, and your crew showed up on Friday at midnight, you would accrue 24 hours of free time, and then Saturday and Sunday passed, you'd still have 24 hours of free time on Monday before it would get to detention. The holidays, and we have United States, Canadian, and Mexican holidays as well. If you want to enable any of those, if you don't want some of these holidays to count towards the free time, you just move them to selected holidays, and then go ahead and hit save. You create a profile for your detention rules. Go ahead and zoom in on the map here and see what we've got. So here at this detention profile, we've got two landmarks that are part of the detention. Landmark 1 is here, and landmark 2 is here. We have one asset that's currently in free time. So if we go ahead and expand this map, and we zoom in on this landmark, and if we look at Legend, you'll see that the blue pin means that it's a detention landmark. So that blue polygon is a landmark that has detention. The red one, if there was a red pin, that would be an asset that is currently in detention time. Right now, we actually have one asset that's in free time, so you see the green pin there. But if that green pin was there more than 8 hours, which is what our threshold is set for free time, the pin would turn to red, and now you would be able to see that the asset is in detention. If you go over it, you can also see the asset ID. You can see how many free time hours have accrued. And if it was in detention, then you would see how many hours of detention had accrued, and the free time hours would say the N/A. Mapping works. So let's create a new detention profile. So I'll quickly create a new one. We'll call it Jeff Snow. Put the warning threshold at 40 hours, and we'll do 48 hours of free time. And give it a blue code. Now I'll put my email address back in. Warning emails, and we'll go ahead and say we want to move it over and save. You'll see detention profile. Next step is associating landmarks with this detention profile. So we set up the business rules, we set up getting the email alerts, and we set up the free time, but now we need to add landmarks. So the thing we do is we hit associate. And associate, here are the list of landmarks available for the detention profile. So I have a landmark called Jeff's office, so I'm going to click that. I'm going to move it over. I'm going to hit save. And so now, an asset comes into Jeff's office, into the office landmark. It'll now be associated with the Jeff demo detention profile. The Summary tab allows you to quickly click on any of these landmarks. So we'll do this one, and you can see we have 2 landmarks, and we have one that has an asset in free time. Click that, we can actually drill down to the asset, and we have a couple options here. So there's the options for cancel or end. So if this asset was in detention time, let's say this asset had accrued 15 hours of detention, and talking to your shipper, you decide that you actually don't want to penalize this person for detention. There was a legitimate reason why they were over. What you could do is you could click on the cancel button, and it will remove the asset from its current detention status and will not show up on a report showing it as though it had gone into detention for that period of time. On the other hand, if you have an asset that's in detention for 15 hours and it's legitimate detention, but you don't want it to accrue anymore, you just want it to accrue the 15 hours of detention it already has, you get the end button. And what this will do is it will end detention for the asset, but if the asset's in detention, the record or the history will still be generated. The thing I want to show you is what a view history report looks like. So if you were to of detention, and you can run a report or the view history tab, and view history tab you can select a date range. You can actually sort by a detention profile or by a landmark or an asset ID. I just did a random pull here, and what it'll do is it'll pull up a list of all the different assets that actually entered detention. So this will not show assets that had free time that didn't actually make it to the detention threshold. It'll show those that actually did get into detention. So you can see we have our detention profile, we have our detention landmark names, our location ID, the asset IDs that entered into detention, and then how long they were in detention. So this detention for 55 hours. When it cargo load status information, so it was loaded when it arrived and it was empty when it left. The arrival date, the detention free date, and then the detention end date. So you can see it looks like we had 5 days of free time here, and as soon as 5 days of free time hit, detention began. Detention ended after 55 hours and 17 minutes, and the notification was sent properly on the 5th, about 24 hours before it actually entered into the detention. So you can download into a CSV and use this reconciliation with your own billing. What's nice about this is it's all based on the motion of the trailers, the cargo status of the trailers, and the business rules that you set up. So this is a great way to have a very productive conversation with your billers and shippers of detention, because this gives you a lot of visibility into what's really happening with the trailers. You're not relying on the shippers and the deliveries to let you know whether or not a trailer, when it arrives, when it was available to be taken. You have the actual information here. So with that, that's kind of the overview of detention. If there are any questions, I'm going to go ahead and look at the question and answer on the bottom right screen. screen of the WebEx, so I'll open it up to any questions anyone has. The first question is, can you set detention parameters to apply to all landmarks and then exclude or modify those with detention parameters other from standard, as opposed to selecting each individual landmark? You actually do have to select each landmark that they're associated with. So you can set up one detention profile and quickly add every single landmark, and then if you knew the ones that you wanted to exclude, kind of pull those out of the list. But you, in fact, have to apply them one at a time, or, in this case, you could bulk apply them. But if there was something special that you wanted to do, Randy, in terms of, getting something a little more sophisticated that you didn't want to use the UI for, it's something that we could talk through and potentially do for you on the engineering side, too. So really complex list of tools that you want to use for detention, feel free to reach out to us. Let's see. So that was the first question. Next question is, how specific is the area? Do you enter it in as an address? So the area is actually using our polygon landmarks. So you use the radius landmark or polygon landmark, but when you set up a landmark, you can be very specific around the area that you want it to be. So you're, putting it in a shipping yard, you can, draw an exact box or polygon around the exact area that you want to count for the detention. And so you can even get drill down even further. So if it's a big shipping yard and you have a maintenance facility and you have a cleaning facility, you can actually set up nested landmarks as well within a master landmark. So you can be very, very specific about the area. The question is, can the business rules be set up to restrict trailer types? Currently, we don't do that, but that's definitely something that we could take as a note from enhancement. I think that does make a lot of sense. So I will take that as a note as a possible enhancement. Okay, next question. You have a build to code. How is that set up in the system? So for us, we don't actually do any of the actual billing for you. It would just be passed through on the report. So if you wanted to add a bill code and then you saw your list of detention, it's just another field on the report that shows you what the bill code would be for that particular detention profile. So hopefully answers that question. Any other questions? To specify a detention profile for only a specific asset or group of assets. So the way that it's set up today is really dependent on location more than it is asset. I think we could probably do some things with filtering by asset or making that an option, but today it's really about the location and focus on the location more than it is focused on the actual asset. And typically, I think most of our customers, they have an agreement with the shipper on how fast that trailer should turn around. So typically, they're thinking in the terms of the location and making sure that the trailer turns quickly enough. Question: can you groups that have already been set up to apply business rules, or does it have to be individual basis? I'm sure I totally understand the question, Margot, but if you have the business rules that apply for detention are just for detention. So if the business rules that you have in other areas within Insight, they will not carry over. If you have groups of assets, you really have to add assets individually, landmarks individually. You can't add a group of landmarks. So it's still very much self-contained within the detention module. Question, Stephen Spencer. So is charging hours for trailer detention more standard versus doing it by the day? I've heard of some companies doing it for every 15 minutes. I've heard some doing it by 24. So what we do is we ask you what billing increment you want. So if you want, standard increments. If you have less than 24 increments, then that's one way of billing if that's how your terms are set up. So it's really, it gives you the flexibility of setting it up to give you the report on whatever increment you want, but how you would actually take this data and charge someone for detention is obviously dependent between you and the company and the agreement that you have. Okay, question. Does the detention module only apply to a specific model of MT, Gemini series only? So this does actually apply to the GXTs 3000s and 2000s. So if you have one of those devices, then it will work. The satellite and Gemini series do not, just because they don't have the reporting threshold that's required for the detention module. It works for consignee. It will vary dramatically on where the asset lands geographically. How does that work with the program? So, Wendy, I might need to follow up with you on that one. That's one that I am not sure exactly how to answer. So if you feel free to reach out to me directly in the dayhunter@skybits.com, and I will answer that question once I'm able to digest it. Can this be used for power detention also? I'm not familiar with what power detention is, so Steve, if you want to expand on that question, I'll be happy to answer it. Any other questions? I want to thank everyone for attending, and again, if you want to enable this feature, please contact customer care and have it enabled, and we hope that it's a helpful and useful feature for everyone. And I'll sign for another 2 minutes in case there are any other questions that straggle in, but thank you again for attending. Are you able to talk?
Yeah.
There?
Yes.
Hey, so I just wanted to try to understand your question a little bit further in depth.
On the line, is reference to power?
Yes, that's correct.
We have two events. The driver is still staying with the trailer. We call that a power detention event. Versus when we drop the trailer and leave it there to be unloaded at a later date, we call trailer detention. Something is able to tell empty or loaded in both events.
Yeah, if it's still, all it cares about is the device getting into that landmark. So if it stays attached to the tractor, it doesn't matter. It's in that area. It starts doing detention. So if you drop it and leave it, or you keep it attached to the tractor, it'll behave the same way.
That answers my question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
we'll go ahead and end. And again, thank you everybody for joining.